And so I said, okay, like let's dive in and look at what's going on here. And the first thing I want to look at is how did you actually onboard that person? And so when I asked her to give me the onboarding documents or what she was doing to onboard that person, it was essentially nothing, right? It was like we had one call and then I had her shadow a bunch of stuff, read a bunch of stuff, and look at a bunch of stuff. And I was like, oh gosh, okay. And that was when I realized that for my own team, I really needed to put the processes in place so that they knew how to onboard someone properly. And so I created a lot more resources and trainings on how to do that, that we can use internally. And a lot of it was templates. And so that's something I'll encourage at the end of this video is just how to kind of create that. I think that the reason that a lot of people don't do this and they end up doing what she did, right? Which I'll tell you that she actually, when I went in, I said, we need to actually re-onboard her. Okay. And so I had her do a proper onboarding using the resources I created. And then she re-onboarded her. And to this day, she's still in our company kicking ass. That's how much the onboarding makes a difference. If you're thinking about yourself and you're like, I can't really comprehend how much of a difference this would make, just think about when you start using a new software, right? Okay, well, if you don't have the onboarding to use the new software, you don't know what buttons to click, you don't know where to go, you don't know who to talk to. And so you're kind of left blind. And you could maybe use the software, but you're only using like a fourth of its capacity. And I see that as what happens with employees, except they're only able to express a fourth of their capacity because they don't know how to utilize the business and the people within it. The first 5 common mistakes that I see when it comes to onboarding an employee are these. The first one is the lack of pre-onboarding. Okay, so there's telling somebody and giving them a job offer and them accepting it, and then there's their first day. And a lot of people think, okay, well, onboarding starts on day 1. Onboarding does not start on day 1. Onboarding starts the moment that they sign the job offer. It's the communication between that and setting the expectations. I'll give you the example, which is something that we do, is we're going to send an email out after that occurs, and it's going to say all the things that they should expect in the coming weeks, and with a timeline. So when should you expect the next email? What do you need to do on your end, which is often setting up systems, logins, etc. And then what to expect in your first day and when you're going to get the schedule of what your first week is going to look like. Okay, so just setting the expectations for them, because someone enters a new job, they feel like there's a lot of uncertainty and there's no predictability. And humans really like predictability. So if you can tell them what's going to happen next and when it's going to happen, they're going to feel a lot more comfortable coming in. And they're actually going to be able to take a lot more action because they feel confident. With that, I would say that sending them a swag package, some, team gear, some stuff like that, like a poster of the core tenets, like that's stuff that we like to do as well. And so, do with that as you may. That's the first piece. The second piece is that once the person comes in, they have their day 1, there's too little communication with the hiring manager. And so when I say hiring manager, I mean the person who is their supervisor, okay? So most of the time that is the person who hires them. Sometimes it's HR, but in most of the people who are probably watching my videos, it's probably a hiring manager. It's like the sales manager, the marketing manager, ops manager, that they're hiring a person. Okay, so when they bring someone in, what I do, and I still do this with executives, okay, is I will talk to them twice a day, every day, for the first 2 weeks minimum. And so when I say talk to them, I don't mean like I'm slacking. I'm slacking them in between. I'm talking to them once in the morning for 30 minutes and then in the afternoon for 30 minutes. So at the beginning and the end of their day. And I can tell you, like, I've tried not doing that because it is a pain in the ass, right? You're like, this is a lot of time talking to this person. It works like a charm. It gets the person up to speed really quickly. And it helps answer all of their questions so they don't have constraints and roadblocks when they're starting to get themselves educated and understand the company. This is something I still do to this day. I typically do 2 times per day for the first 2 weeks, and then you go down to 1 time per day for a couple weeks, and then you go down to twice per week, and then once per week onto a normal one-on-one cadence. And I let them dictate this, okay? If I feel like they're really excelling and they're doing well, then I'll say, hey, how are you feeling? Do you want to do less or more? And typically they'll say, hey, I think we can wind it down a little bit. If the person's not succeeding, then obviously I'm just going to stick to the plan. Okay, so that's the second thing, is that most people don't do that much communication. What most people do is they do like once a week, once every other week. And I've seen managers do this, and I've let them have that autonomy within my company before. Never works out. So that's the second thing, is communication. The third thing is that there's too much, there's not enough structure when they're onboarding somebody. Something that I like to do when I'm onboarding is I want to make sure that I've laid out hour by hour their agenda for the first 1 to 2 weeks. What a lot of people do is they just say, I need you to consume all of these things and shadow all of this stuff. But that leaves a few things, which is one, people like structure, and regardless of what the job's going to look like on the other side, you want the structure to facilitate the learning. And so yes, maybe they don't need that much structure once they get in, and in their role, they won't have any provided after the onboarding. But if you make that clear to them and you say, this is here so that you can quickly get up to speed on the company, and so this is more than you will ever have any other time, then that is okay. Within that structure, what I like to do is I like to tell them why they're doing everything they're doing. So if I'm going to have them shadow somebody, if I'm going to have them do a one-on-one with somebody, if I'm going to have them introduced to somebody, what's the outcome of the conversation I want them to have with that person? And what's the intention behind having them consume these things? What do I want them to look for? A lot of the times, if you really want somebody to consume and learn something, then you want them to take notes and give you feedback. Okay, so that's a huge way that you can get someone to learn faster when you're onboarding them, is you want them to give you feedback on the things they're consuming, learning, and the people they're talking to. So that's the third one, is that there's not enough structure. Now, the fourth one is that there's unclear expectations. So typical case scenario, and this is probably what happened for the first year that we had a business, was somebody would come in, would onboard them, and then about a month, 2 months into it, you can tell that they're a little hesitant, and every time we'd be on a one-on-one, they're just like, I just want to make sure I'm focusing on the right things. And the reason for that is because we didn't have, and I didn't set proper expectations off the gate. So I was used to waiting a little bit and then setting KPIs, but I didn't have anything in the short term for them to aim for. And so what we do now is we do 30, 60, and 90-day goals, okay? And so if you're looking at that, you just want to, based on the role, decide what are the most important things that you want them to accomplish within that amount of time. And much of the time what I'll do is once that person's accepted a job offer, I'll review this with them prior and say, does this sound reasonable to you? If it's a, say lower level role or one that I understand, I might be able to set the expectations for them without having to get their input. But if it's a higher level role and maybe I don't have expertise in it, I'm going to have to maybe even have them create it themselves, right? If I'm bringing an executive, I'm going to have them create their 30, 60, 90-day plan, give it to me, and then I will review it. If I'm hiring somebody who's a manager or an individual contributor, I'm going to make it and then have them review it. So it also depends on the expertise of the person. But having that gives you the goals to shoot for, and what you can do is just have check-ins at 30, 60, 90 that are specifically for reviewing those targets and to see were those reasonable. If so, what are the next ones? Do these ones make sense? Are they also reasonable? Et cetera, or have priorities changed? And then the last piece is that they don't have a feedback loop. And what I mean by this is a lot of the times when somebody's coming in, what we tend to do, and this is what I tend to do in the beginning, is you want to steer away from any conflict, because there's usually not a huge amount of trust built, and there's not a huge amount of camaraderie, and they've come into the team and they're new, and you don't want to hurt their feelings. You don't want to make them feel like they're less than. You don't want to discourage them. Here's the thing. Trust is built through adversity. And so when you can come to a person and say, hey, I love what you're doing, but this right here, it's not working. Or this that you did over here doesn't work with our team. This is how we do it instead. They then trust you to be transparent with them, and they know, hey, Layla will come to me when I'm doing something that isn't aligned with the company or with the role, and she'll let me know. She's not just gonna like ghost fire me one day. And so the more friction that you can put in on the front end, the smoother the ride will be on the back end. It's kind of like if you're getting married, it's like go through talking about all the, uncomfortable shit before you get married, and you will have a good marriage. If you don't do that, then on the back end, there's going to be way more friction, and it's going to lead to, all sorts of shit you don't want to deal with. And so it's the same with onboarding somebody. You want to get all that friction out in the beginning so the rest of the ride is smooth. Now, those are the 5 most common mistakes, right? We have lack of pre-onboarding, meaning you think that onboarding starts on day 1 rather than right after they accept the job. We have too little communication, which is you think that communicating once a week or twice a week is fine when someone's brand new, when in reality, twice a day is pretty effective. There's lack of structure, so not having enough of a laid out agenda and a cadence for them in the beginning. Then there's unclear expectations, not having the 30, 60, 90 day. And then there's not having a feedback loop. Okay, so you're not being able to quickly tell them where they are going right versus going wrong. And so what I want to move to is what do you want with your onboarding? Okay, so this is the framework that I think I got it from SHRM, which is a human resource that, by the way, they have tons of good resources. So I would go there and look at stuff if you have questions on people, onboarding, employment, compliance, all that stuff. But they call it the 5 C's of compliance. And so my interpretation of it is this. Okay, there's 5 C's, and I'll just kind of tell you what it means to me, because I don't necessarily follow exactly what they say, but it all means the same thing one way or another. The first one is compliance. So when you're onboarding someone, you have to make sure, did I have them sign all their paperwork? Do they have an NDA? Do they have an employment agreement? Did they sign the employee handbook? Do they have training on compliance within the company? Some companies, that's irrelevant. Some companies, it's irrelevant for most departments except for, say, finance, IT, or HR. And so that's the first piece that you want, is you want somebody, it might be you if your company's smaller, or it might be your HR manager, to make sure they're reviewing all the compliance with that person. They're making sure all the paperwork is signed, make sure all the legal pieces are taken care of, and that person has training on any compliance needed to make sure that your business operates without risk. Okay. The second piece is clarity. This piece we already covered. That's having 30 and 60, 90-day goals. Okay. That's making sure that person has clarity on what they're there to do. oftentimes what I tell someone when I hire them is I'm like, I'm not hiring you to do work. I'm hiring you to solve problems. Here's the problems I want you to start solving. Okay. And this is going to measure your progress towards solving those problems. I don't expect you to solve problems in your first 30 days, but I do expect some to get solved in the first 60 or 90, right? Depending on the level of that problem. The third is culture. So this is where, when you're designing the onboarding, you want to think, how do I immerse them in the culture? What should they watch? Maybe it's a event that you threw 2 years ago. Maybe it's a presentation or a webinar that you've given. Maybe it's your podcast or a book, right? Maybe it's books that you've read, podcasts that you've consumed. What do you want them to connect with, right? Do you want them to talk to your marketing manager? Who in the company embodies the culture to an extent where they should form a relationship with them, and they will also understand these people represent the culture that you want, and so connecting them would be a great thing to do. And then it's, what do you want them to read? And so like reading the employee handbook, reading any of the other, sometimes I'll send people old email threads. Even if I, for example, I'm handing over a vendor to somebody, I'll just forward all the emails I've ever had with that vendor and just say, here's the background in that relationship. So it's being able to read the historical data. Okay. So that's the third one, is culture. And then the fourth is connection. Okay. So that's where there's a couple ways that you can do this. Obviously, there's introducing them to peers. There's also connecting them to peers. So a lot of the times what you might want to do, especially if that person is coming in for a role where you as their boss may not be the best person to be a resource for them because maybe you're not really close to it, is that you want to assign them a buddy. And that person is the person that's going to be their first go-to if they have questions or things that they need to ask. And so oftentimes if I set it up like that, I will have that person be on the check-ins that we're doing each day, or even run the check-ins if it's that close. The second piece of that is making sure that you facilitate cross-departmental communication. So you might ask them to sit in on meetings that are of departments that they are connecting with daily, but they don't actually run or manage. Okay. Then they have a holistic perspective of how their department is going to affect these other departments, because they're able to watch and see what they talk about and look at and measure on a day-to-day basis. And then the last piece is check back. Okay. So that is essentially what we've been talking about this whole time, which is making sure that you have a good feedback loop, making sure that you're communicating clearly and often. And so that's that 2 times a day check-ins that goes to the 1 to the twice a week to the once a week, as well as being able to confront them and give them feedback and ask for feedback frequently. Something that I like to do is when someone first comes in, when I give them their welcome package, when I tell them what their onboarding is going to look like, I say, listen, something that's amazing is that you come in here and you've got fresh eyes. And so what I would love is if you're on all these meetings and you're talking to all these people, you don't know that, sometimes when you've been going in a company for so long, there's like an elephant in the room that people don't even notice because the elephant's been there so long. I would love if you could write down those elephants for me. And I would love if in a week you can compile those notes and send them to me in an email. And so you are encouraging them to give you feedback, and then you in return will also give them feedback. So you're fostering that relationship where you're creating that open candor in the beginning. And so the 5 C's of onboarding, okay, you've got compliance, you've got clarity, you've got culture, you've got connection, and you've got check back. And so if you are growing quickly and you are a small company, if you're a startup, you're probably not funded, you're probably not backed, I cannot express the importance of this because a lot of people say they don't have time to focus on this onboarding. They're like, Layla, that sounds like a lot. I've got to put a ton of stuff together. I don't even know how I'm going to do this. The reality is that you don't have time not to do it because the amount of money it's going to cost you if you continue to lose and turn over employees like many companies do who don't have onboarding, you can either take the time now or you can pay the price later. And so I would prefer to take the time now and also make sure I set those people up for success. And I love working in the company I'm working in, and it's good culture and high morale, rather than a culture of churn and burn where people don't feel like they're taken care of, don't feel like they're supported, and have no motivation. And so I hope that video is useful. If you are also working on interviewing, I would refer back to my other video on how to successfully interview, and then that will help you understand how to make sure that you have the right people in when you're onboarding them. So with that, I hope you have a great rest of your day, evening, morning, whatever, and I will talk to you soon.
This summer at Grocery Outlet, get all the best wines at even better prices. Now through June 17th, you can save an extra 20% off every bottle we've got in stock during our wine sale, with hundreds of wines for every occasion. Don't get caught by the pool without a chilled rosé or your favorite crisp white. And bring along a smooth Cabernet for the summer barbecue or steak dinner. Don't wait. Hurry into your local Grocery Outlet before June 17th and save 20% on every single bottle.
Grocery Outlet Bargain Market.
Okay, Amber, it looks like we are live, large and in charge as always on a Wednesday. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Happy Wednesday. Is it Wednesday? It is Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday that feels like a Monday.
It feels like a Monday because it's the day after the 4th of July. How was your holiday?
It was good. How about yours? It was nice and relaxing.
Low key, baby, low key. I normally go out and party it up, but not this year. I decided to stay home. I made some carne asada tacos and hung out with my son and my friend Jake, and we just chilled out and did our thing. But it was really nice.
Awesome.
From my vantage point, we got to see a lot of the fireworks around town. And then, of course, the Sphere lit up for the first time ever last night, which was really, 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 really cool. So.
Could you see that from your place?
Yes, and then I watched a live stream on YouTube just to see what it was looking like, and it just looks freaking otherworldly. It honestly looks like it's like a spaceship. It's incredible. So super exciting. So happy 4th, happy Independence Day, to everybody watching as well as to you. For those of you just tuning in, I'm here with my amazing friend Amber Coleman. She is one of the top 200 lenders in the entire nation for a reason. I only work with the best, and I'm pretty sure she only works with the best too. But I'm just super excited today, Amber, because we have a tendency to get a lot of really great questions from our clients and from people who are reaching out through the YouTube channel, asking kind of just point blank questions. If I were to do this loan, what would my payment be? If I was going to do this loan, what would my payment be? And a lot of times, and I'm hoping you can help me explain this, a lot of times in your world, in the lending side, it's really difficult to explain immediately with one question what your rate and what you're going to get for your payment is going to be, unless it's a certain kind of loan. Can you walk me through why it's so difficult to kind of quote that right off the bat?
Well, okay, because most loans are very much based off of your individual FICO score. Some of them even have debt ratio requirements, that like loan limits. So if you're going above a certain loan limit, you might have to go to a different type of loan. So they have different requirements on them.
Right.
And so that's why it's easier if I pull everything so I could see what your FICO score is, what your debt ratio is, especially if you need a grant or something like that. What your FICO score is, what your debt ratio is, how much in assets you have. And then I can kind of pull together, okay, here's what programs you qualify for, and here's what the payments look like.
I sometimes think of it like you have stuff flying at you. You're just like, I don't know, because there's so many little factors that change. So today, though, we decided to talk about FHA loans. First of all, it's the most popular loan out there right now. Am I right about that, or am I making that up?
No, really, in this market, it's the most popular loan. In the market of COVID, people try to stay away from it, but in this one, it's the most popular. And I can explain why too. Why everybody's liking it.
Yeah.
So FHA, when you do an FHA loan, one of the big things right now is any loan that's being done right now, the market kind of understands that it's a future refinance, right? Mm-hmm. Like we're going to be refinancing this at some point. So FHA loans, when you refinance them, there's no appraisal, there's no checking for jobs, there's not very many verifications on the refinance, and you could just streamline into a lower rate, which is, I think, why they're being looked at a little bit more now than conventional. Plus, they just lowered their rates are a little bit lower, and their mortgage insurance dropped at the beginning of the year, so that's why they're a little bit more popular right now.
At Grainger, we're for the ones who pay attention to every little detail, the ones who fuss, tinker, and sweat the small stuff. Because the tiniest thing can make the biggest difference when it comes to keeping business moving. We get it. We're the same way, offering access to product experts to help you quickly and easily find what you need. So whatever your industry, you're always getting professional-grade products. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
So, and it's usually a popular loan too, because there's people, there's still that misconception out there that people think you have to bring 20% down to buy a house. I even had a phone call about an hour ago with someone who said, so we haven't quite saved the full 20% yet. We think we'll be ready by next year. And I was like, why are you trying to is there a reason you want to do 20%? And they were like, isn't that what you have to buy a home? And I'm like, oh my God, P.S. Anybody watching this, you do not need 20% down to purchase a home. In fact, the reason that I believe FHA loans are so popular as well is because it only requires 3.5% down, which we're going to talk about. Now, you can put more down, and of course that's great, and that helps bring your payment down, but you do not have to save 20% to buy a home. So that's really exciting.
And just so you know, too, hardly anybody puts 20% down unless they have a house to sell and then they're rolling that money in.
Yeah, that's a good point.
the lower down payment loans, FHA conventional, they're the most popular loans that are out there. So don't feel like you need to wait for 20%.
Good. Okay. So today I thought it would be fun for us to try to take some basic loan amounts, a 350, 450, and maybe the top of the line when it comes to FHA, and actually walk everybody who's watching through a rate sheet that walks them through what their payment might look like. Now, I'm going to caveat this by saying it is very important for you to understand watching this, and I'm going to put it at the bottom. In fact, I'm going to do it right now. So you guys can't say we didn't tell you. When you're listening to us talk about rates, it's just today. That's just today, and your situation might be different. But these are some really cool kind of tentpole guidelines for you to keep an eye on so that you can understand what you might be able to expect when you're buying a home, and also just kind of where things are right now. How do you feel about that, Amber?
I feel good. Let's do it. This is the first time we've done this, so it's kind of exciting.
I'm really, really exciting. Now I'm gonna put that away for a minute. But guys, if you're watching this and you have specific questions, or even if you have questions about anything, Las Vegas, moving to Vegas, real estate, who does my hair, whatever you want to know, just drop it like it's hot in the comment box below. If you want to get in touch with us, we also have a pinned comment in the description as well as in the description as our information. Please click the link. Please call us, text us anytime. We want to be here for you. You don't need to be ready to buy to call us. We don't care if you're buying now or 10 years from now. We're ready to help you. Okay, now I'm going to add this back to the screen. So Amber, let's start with the basics here. $350,000 purchase price. Walk me through this rate sheet and how should I be thinking about this as a buyer?
Okay, so this is a typical fee worksheet that we'll send out when you're like wanting to get estimates on what you're looking for. So at $350,000, let me break it down starting from the top so it makes more sense. So we have the $350,000 sales price. Well, first they have it on an FHA loan. That way you know the loan program. $350,000 sales price. You have a down payment, and I'll explain how their mortgage insurance works. So the loan amount we're looking at is $343,600. Then we estimated your loan cost plus taxes and other fees. That's on there. So here's where FHA gets a little bit confusing, where I have to explain this to people all the time, is FHA has mortgage insurance that's added on to the top of added onto your loan amount, and they have monthly mortgage insurance. So your loan costs look high on an FHA, but then there's a subtraction where it says closing costs financed in $5,910. So that actually offsets that mortgage insurance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So if you see a negative or I guess a negative number here, just know that that's a credit towards you. That's offsetting anything that you might have had to put out there on the top line, that first number up above. The other thing I wanted to caveat this with, Amber, is FHA loans are pretty standard across the board for some of these fees that we're talking about if you're above a 620 FICO score. Is that right?
Yeah, so FHA gives the same interest rate for 620 and above FICO scores. So the rate that we're looking at on the sheet is today's interest rate at 6.650 with a 620 or above FICO score. If it goes below that, then the rate's going to be higher.
Right. Then your payment would go up a little bit, right?
And then your payment would go up a little bit. And just keep in mind, rates fluctuate sometimes by the hour. Today's market's been a bit crazy today. So they fluctuate all the time. That's why we're saying this is the rates right now. But that doesn't mean that it's the rates tomorrow. Like last week, I saw one day where they hit like 6.125. So it just depends on like what day you're looking at. The interest rates. We're just showing today's interest rates as of this hour.
So if you're 620 or above, which would be ideal, you can qualify for FHA. But good news for you, if you're someone who's just struggling, you've had life happen. We've all had life happen, right, Amber? We both have had our hits on our credit. You can go down to a 540 or a 580.
So you can go down to a 540 if you want to put 10% down. You can go down to a 580 with 3.5% down.
So same program down to 580 credit score, with exception to your rate's going to be a little bit higher. So just wanted to caveat that so everybody watching understands what we're looking at here is not exactly what you're going to pay, but it's pretty dang close if you have that 620 or above score, right? And if it was today that you were going to lock in your rate and everything was dialed in, right?
Yep. Yep.
All right. So $350. If you're buying a $350,000 house, you're going to put 3.5% down. This also doesn't take into account that maybe the seller might give you some money towards closing costs. Maybe there's going to be a credit from whoever, wherever, whatever, right? There's all kinds of caveats that could make this come down. What if you qualified for a grant and I was able to get grant money? That grant money would come in and come off the top as well. So all of that being said, this is with no additional fun stuff, which we're always going to look for, always going to try to help you find. $2,581.49 is your purchase price if you bought today's rates at $350 purchase price, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But let me break it down for you a little bit on here since we kind of went through the closing costs. So then FHA is 3.5% down payment. So on this one, you could see that section where it says down payment $12,250. That's the down payment. If the seller can always pay closing costs, you can always get a gift for closing costs, or even the down payment, and you can get grants on top of that too.
Right.
So then if you go to the next section where it talks about rate, it talks about APR too. So we always have to list APR on every form because that includes cost, mortgage insurance, everything, and kind of wraps it into one interest rate. And then with the payment, you're always going to see a breakdown. So principal and interest, you're at $2,249. That's just principal and interest. Then you always want to add on taxes, insurance, and mortgage insurance because you're always going to have that on your loan. So homeowners insurance, we're just estimating at 60. Keep in mind, I'm throwing a complete estimate on there. Sometimes I get them down to 20. Sometimes they come out at 120, depending on the house and depending on you, when you're qualifying for insurance. Then we have mortgage insurance. That's FHA's mortgage insurance. They don't adjust their mortgage insurance. So it adjusts with it's as far as the percentage, it adjusts with your purchase price. And then the taxes, we're estimating those too. Keep in mind, the older the house, the lower the taxes. The newer the house, the higher the taxes. Yeah. So I've kind of just pulled something in the middle.
Yeah, we're going to be doing some videos talking about that. So just stay tuned. We're going to be doing some really awesome videos that'll talk to you about the difference with buying a brand new home versus a resale. There's a lot of things that people don't take into account that we hope that you guys will be able to learn from. But bottom line, Amber, again, without grants, without any seller credits, which we would of course try to fight for, without anything that's outside giving you an awesome gift, this is what you're going to look at if you want to buy a $350,000 house in Las Vegas. Can I talk today? I can't talk today.
No, you're doing great.
So the other thing I want to say is, as you mentioned early on, FHA, a lot of times they're going to be refinanced, right? Once your house gains a little bit of equity or the rates go down or something, whatever, there's going to be a reason for you to refinance. So when you do refinance, most of the time, you're going to be able to get rid of that mortgage insurance. Am I right, Amber?
Well, if you refinance on a conventional loan. So when you go to refinance, if you go FHA to FHA, you're still going to have mortgage insurance on there, but it'll be, if you're doing a refinance, you're doing it for a cheaper rate. If you go FHA to conventional, that's when you could get rid of the mortgage insurance as long as you have 20% equity in the house.
Got it. Awesome. And so we can always work with you on that. Amber's really great about sending out updates. I'm going to put this away for just a second. Amber's really great about sending out updates to you guys. Once you purchase a home with her team, once a month, you're getting an email saying, hey, your house could be valued about this based on the market. Hey, your house. So it's really great because that keeps you in the know. That's when you call us and go, hey, is this right? Is this accurate? Because it's going to be aggregate data, but it does really get pretty close sometimes. And I love that you guys have that home bot thing that you guys send out, because it really keeps our homeowners invested and tied into the value that they're putting into their own pocket every time they make that payment, instead of making it to another landlord, not themselves, right?
Yes, exactly. HomeBot is awesome because after you own a house too, it not only gives you the value of what your house is going to be, but if you decide to rent it, then there's a section on there here saying, here's the average rent for your house. If you decide to do nightly rentals or something like that, I mean, even though there's more laws and stuff but it'll give you all that information. So it is pretty awesome after you close on a house.
I love it. All right, Amber, let's go to the next one. Let's give some more scenarios here. Let's talk about 400,000. Again, I know this is probably just standard. People can do the math moving up, but I think it helps for people to see the actual numbers in front of their face.
Yeah, so 400,000, your down payment on that, if we go down to the down payment, is $14,000. Right. And then remember, the reason why the $400,000 sales price and the loan amount of $392 doesn't add up is because you have your down payment on it, and then it adds that upfront mortgage insurance to the loan amount. So 392, 755 is what you actually finance. And then at the same interest rate at 6.625, which is in this hour, today's rate. But like I said,
it could go down. It could go down before 5 p.m. It could go up next Monday. It could be a sneeze, and then all of a sudden it goes up and then down within an hour. So it does change by the minute.
It literally is a sneeze. If the feds do anything, they sneeze and the rates move. Yeah. So it's literally a sneeze. So the payment on $400,000 with the $14,000 down payment is $2,000.
No grants, no seller credits. I want to reiterate that this is not taking into account if you qualify for grants or if we get you seller credits in the negotiations, right?
Yeah. Because that all changes everything. We're just giving raw numbers right here. We're always an advocate to try to see if we can get you money from anywhere we can get it for, depending on your qualifications. So just kind of keep that in mind.
Yes.
But to break down the payment at the very bottom of the screen, it shows the principal and interest at $2,514.85. And then we've estimated insurance at $60. Mortgage insurance is at $176. And then we've estimated property taxes at $200. So your total payment is highlighted in yellow at $2,950.85 for a $400,000 house.
If the rates drop down, that payment and everything goes with it, right? So keep that in mind. And that's why interest rates and staying locked in with us and not waiting for the market to get better and not waiting for the Fed to tell us what we're doing. That's why staying in touch with us and talking to us almost as often as you'd like about what you should do about your rate. When is it time to shop? When is it time to lock my rate is so important. Amber's team has their finger on the pulse. I get, what do we talk? 6 times a day, maybe 8 times a day? I don't even know.
Something like that. I mean,
I do love having such a smart best friend. I know. I do love having such a smart best friend. The rates are up. Oh, okay. I didn't know. I should tell my clients. But it does really help us that you eat, sleep, and do everything else. I'm not going to say the right word. You eat, sleep, and live the rates. So her team being so on top of these rates is super helpful because it's going to help you know when it's time to lock so that you're not going to be, thinking that your payment's going to be $2,500. And then by the time we close your loan, it's now $3,000. And you're like, crap, I don't make enough money for that. Right. Yeah. You guys have to stay in lockstep with her and staying in lockstep with us during that loan closing process for sure. Amber, let's talk about the most popular price point right now. The median home price for Las Vegas, for the Valley of Las Vegas, is right around that $450 mark, or somewhere between $430 and $460. So this is right in the middle where everyone seems to be spending money right now. Again, without any seller credits, without any grants, with the bare minimum of 3.5% down. Let's walk through these numbers.
Okay, so $450,000 purchase price. Again, we're going to look at the down payment of $15,750. And again, the reason why the loan amount doesn't add up is because you take the down payment and add the upfront mortgage insurance, which is that closing cost financed in as $7,599. I know that probably confused, but I just wanted to explain how we got there. And then with the rate today, this hour, right now, of 6.625, you're looking at a principal and interest payment of $2,829.21. Hazard insurance, which is homeowner's insurance. So if your house catches on fire, gets broken into, that kind of insurance. You're required to have that on the house. We estimate that at $60. Mortgage insurance is estimated at $198. Mortgage insurance is what you have on a loan if you're putting down less than 20% on the house. And then the taxes are estimated at $250. Keep in mind, the older the house, the cheaper the taxes. The newer the house, the more expensive the taxes. So we're coming right in the middle with that. So
it's on the assessed value. It's on the assessed value of the home, and that's why the assessed value, as the home gets older, the assessed value is kind of assessed differently, assessed less. Brand new homes are going to be exactly what you're paying, right?
Yeah. So then in yellow, the total payment's highlighted at $3,337.21. Right. At the $450,000.
Now, let's talk a little bit about closing costs, Amber. A lot of people think all they have to have, and again, sometimes this can be covered by the seller, sometimes these can be covered by grants, but if I don't have any of those extra things that are helping me out and I want to buy a home, a lot of times people think I just need 3.5% down. But the reality is either we need to find you a grant or the seller needs to pay, or you'll need to come cash to close to close the home and be purchasing it with about $26,000 on this one. Am I correct?
Yeah, that if you're not able to get any seller credits, and I guess it depends on how popular the house is, right? If you want a house that's that everybody's wanting, and there's so many offers on it. A lot of people are willing to sacrifice and pay the closing costs, so then you have to beat those people out. Right. So like if the seller's not able to pay any money and you're not able to get a grant for one reason or another, then on a $450,000 house, we're looking at $26,572 is what the estimated cost would be.
Right. Now, keep in mind, so within closing costs, there's a lot of different factors, and we didn't detail those out here today. We can certainly answer those questions as you guys ask them. But within closing costs, Amber, give me a rundown of some of the costs that people are going to need to understand are going to be wrapped up in that number, that $10,000.
So how I figure it is basically anybody that touches your loan has a fee on there. So there's going to be like,
except for me, we don't touch your loan.
Lacey, but you're not touching the loan. You're just helping. You're helping them with the house, right? Which is the most fun thing to do.
Yes.
So like there's a title company involved. There's an escrow company involved. There's title fees, there's escrow fees, there's insurances for your title to keep your title protected. There's homeowners insurance that they're going to require upfront payment on. There's taxes that are required upfront payment on. There's HOA fees that are required upfront payment on. If you buy down your rate and you have to pay any points, then those points are within your closing costs. There's an underwriter, there's a processor, there's an appraiser that all has fees on there too. So basically anybody that has to go, because when you're doing a loan, there's several processes you have to go through in order to get it, and to make sure that the value is good, to basically keep everybody honest. I mean, that's what an appraiser is there to do, is to keep the seller honest, to make sure you're buying the house at fair market value, right?
I just want to point out, so first of all, there's like 1,000 people that touch that loan before it gets through to the end, which I think is awesome. A lot of people assume that, lending still looks like it did back in 2008. Even 2008, there were a lot of people that touched the loan, but there's that many layers and that many stopgaps and that many people to make sure that nothing is fraudulent, that everybody's on the up and up, that your documents look clean, that there's not going to be a problem later with not only you being able to make the payment, but also you being approved, right? So it's on both sides. But beyond that, I think what's biggest misconception is that people, especially buyers, sellers, different story, but buyers, they assume that we cost money. We as the realtors are a big cost to them. The only thing that our team at least costs is a flat $695 fee that gets rolled into those closing costs. And that doesn't even come to me or my team. That goes straight to our broker for compliance fees and for some of the stuff that they have to do with your file on our side too. Beyond that though, a lot of people assume, like a lot of people don't call us. I've had people call me. I just thought I'd call. I figure I can't afford you, but I figure I'd call anyway. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't afford me? Are you buying? Yeah, I'm buying. Can you afford a $695 fee? Yes, then you can afford me. That's all we get paid from your side of things, right? So a lot of people just assume because of the house buying process, they think that they're paying like a seller would. That's not how that works. Our fees as realtors are paid by the seller of the home, whether it be a builder or the person who's selling it. And it's already pre-negotiated before you walk through the door. So lots and lots of things that get confused. But that closing fee does incorporate like 1,000 other people, just not our team.
It does. Just not and I want to say something about that, because I see, I see loans all over the place. So there's some agents out there that will charge additional commissions to their clients and not even tell them about it till it gets to closing. So I'm like, wait, we got 1% extra on here. You can't do that. You got to tell people about it. So there's a lot of times you'll get hit with that kind of stuff. So that $695 fee you have is very low compared to what some other people do.
Thank you. We really do try to be affordable, and that isn't even a fee that we receive. It goes straight above us to our broker who we hang our license with, who makes sure that we're within compliance and that we're acting within the law. So I just wanted to touch on that briefly, because those closing costs are not only something that people forget about, they don't realize that's a part of the process, but they also don't seem to understand what the hell am I paying for anyway. So it's your team's fees, it's the insurance stuff, it's all up and down the line, but none of it has to do with the real estate people themselves, like the people who are helping you find the home. Our team, the real estate team itself, does not get paid by you with the exception of the $695 fee. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
All right, let's go to the top of this lending model. Let's go to the top, Amber. Okay. Let's go to so what is the limit, if you could please share, what is the limit on an FHA loan? The most I can borrow.
So the most you can borrow with putting 3.5% down is $510, and the reason why is because the max loan amount on FHA is $492 and change. I should know the change, but I never do. So I just say $492 and change because it changes every year. So
I love that.
But so $510,000 with putting 3.5% down, puts you at that loan limit. Now, when you're looking at this form, you're going to say, wait, Amber, the loan limit's $500,000. But remember, it's the $492 is the base loan amount, and then they add the mortgage insurance on top of that.
Yeah.
The upfront mortgage insurance. So this one has a down payment of $17,850, and then your same rate 6.625. Your principal and interest payment on it would be $3,206.43. Mortgage or homeowners insurance, again, that's if your house catches on fire, breaks down, something like, or not breaks down, house catches on fire, somebody breaks into it, like the theft insurance that's on that. So we're estimating $60 a month. Mortgage insurance is $224 a month, and then your taxes, we're estimating at $300. Again, we're kind of taking in the middle, because the lower the house, or the older the house, the cheaper the taxes. The newer the house, the more expensive the taxes.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
your total payment on this is $3,790.43 at the top limit of FHA.
Top limit. So you can buy a $510,000 home. This is what you're, again, as of today's rates, all the no seller credits, no grants, none of the stuff that would love to make sure that we could try to take advantage of for you. This is the bare bones. As of this moment, as of this hour today, this is what the rates are going to be looking like. This was super helpful for me. I'm wondering if it was for our followers and for the people who watch our channel. So if you've been watching this long, first of all, thanks for tuning in as always. I'm going to pop over to the comment section, Amber, and see if we can answer some of these questions that are coming through.
Let's do it.
Just want to remind you as well, please, drop it like it's hot. If you guys want to talk to us, drop it like it's hot. Click that link in the description. Drop that information. We want to learn who you are. Or you can text me. There's my phone number right at the bottom. It is me. You will talk to me personally. Let's go. With that being said, there's quite a few people who are often wondering, Amber, is FHA just for first-time home buyers? And lo and behold, Martin Givens. Hi, Martin. Good to speak with you again. I think I just spoke with Martin on the phone possibly last week. Martin wants to know, is FHA just for first-time home buyers?
Hi, Martin. No, it's not. But you know what? I get asked that question all the time. And I think it's because FHA is sometimes attached to the first-time home buyer grants. So you do FHA plus a grant. But you don't have to be a first-time home buyer to do FHA. You just have to fit under their FHA loan limits and obviously qualify for the loan. But this could be your 5th time using FHA. The only caveat to FHA is you can't have 2 FHA loans at the same time unless you're living in one and you're a non-occupying co-borrower in the other one. So we have done that quite a bit too.
Yes, we have. Good question, Martin. Thank you so much for asking. Oscar Love says, the internet is a wonderful thing. I'm sitting at the doctor's office with my dad watching you ladies. Hey, Oscar. Always good to see you, buddy. Lady B. I just spoke with Renee on the phone. She says, this is very helpful to see. Happy to be working with you too, Renee. Hey, Renee. We just both spoke to Renee today, I think. I think we both chatted with her today.
Yes, excited to work with you.
So if you are still watching and you have questions about any kind of loan, anything related to real estate, anything related to Las Vegas, if you want to know what I'm up to this weekend, I don't know. I'm just trying to give you guys the free reign to ask anything you want. We're going to stay on for a few minutes longer and make sure we can answer your questions. The bottom line, though, is for those of you who are watching, a lot of people get scared by seeing the rate, the number. That's my payment. Oh, my God. Here's the thing I want you to keep in mind, and something that I think will keep hope alive. Those are some larger payments, more than I've seen in a long time. And I want to be very honest about that. Like, I personally would have a hard time making a $3,300 payment per month. With that being said, however, that's just this hour of today. It could go down next week. It probably will go down. We don't know.